You're watching The Ugly Inside. Subscribe below.
Hello, welcome along to our end of season reviews. The season's finally over. It's been an exhausting season, but we've rallied around the Saints community online. We've got some of the old boys from the Ugly Inside Fanzine. We bring Tony out of retirement. Good to see you, mate.
Nice to meet you.
Clive's here. You all know Clive. And we've got Chris from Saints Marching and Ewan, who's been a great viewer, is now a part of the show. Well, we're here to first of all talk about Claude Puel, the manager, his first season in charge. We all have an opinion. So let me start with Tony first. Claude Puel's first season in charge. Sum it up for me, mate.
I think at the end of the day, the jury's still very much out on Claude Puel. I would say so anyway. I can't really fathom out the formations that he picks. At times, he's got integrity, but he does not have any charisma.
And that's the problem that we've had, really. You know, it's the press conferences sometimes sending people to sleep. Chris, what have you made of Claude this season?
I think it's been hot and cold. I think the fact that we could finish 8th if we better West Brom's result this weekend, or if we equal it, and the fact that we obviously made the EFL Cup final, it gives fans ways to think he's done well. But I don't think he has the players on his side. I don't think he has the fans on his side, and I think there's a Southampton way. I think there's an expectation with the way Koeman and Pochettino set up that I think we need a manager to play with us, or get the players to kind of deploy a similar style to that. And I think Puel is so much different from that it's always going to be a struggle for him to have the fans and the players on his side.
And it's been difficult as well because the reports have suggested that, you know, there's been unrest behind the scenes, some of the players falling out with the manager. You know, Ewan, what have you made of Claude's season?
It's been a difficult season for him. He's had a hell of a lot of games to cope with, but I don't think he's getting enough out of the players that he's got. We look at the squads compared to some of the teams around us, and the amount of depth we've got is head and shoulders above some of the teams, and we're no better than we were 3 or 4 years ago, and we have gone backwards. I do love him, but.
I mean, it's the first season since we've come back up to the Premier League. We've regressed. We've gone backwards in terms of our position in the Premier League.
Yeah, he's not clueless Claude, but he's not charismatic Claude either. That lies the problem. Underwhelmed, I'd say. I'm completely underwhelmed. I'm bored silly with the football. I'm not expecting top 6, but I'm expecting us to go out and have a go at teams. We're not even having a go at teams, and it's that kind of negativity. He's got knowledge in the game, he's got experience, but he doesn't seem to be able to get the best out of the guys he's got in front of him. And I think that's one of the main things that a manager needs to do. Personally, I want to see change. Yeah, well, it's only a debate that we put out on Twitter, and it's been closer than we think, because we put a vote out, and I think just over 350 people voted, and it was 46% in, 54% out. And for me, like you said, it's been disappointing at home watching these nil-nils, and to be fair, you know, it's not what we've been expecting. No, one thing that does annoy me with all this debate though is people calling names to each other, calling each other bedwetters, calling each other happy clappers. We're all Saints fans. We've got different opinions. That's fine. But don't call each other names. Stick to the debate. Stick to the points as to whether you think Claude is good or you think he's not. Personally, I think it's time for a change.
Okay, well, we're going to go to a few comments that have been sent over from us. First, we're going to go to Dan, who writes for the Fanzine, who's got something to say on Claude.
Now, there have been highs and lows for the season, probably more lows than highs, unfortunately to say, but the highs include going to Wembley, competing in Europe, also having some more youth players in the team. That's been a high personally, and I think more people will agree with me. However, lows have included lack of integrity in play, the poor play, lack of goals. There have been injuries, plenty of them to key players this season, and the manager just doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing some of the time. As for the manager, players haven't showed up for some situations, especially those who played last year so well. They haven't lived up to the standards that they have set for themselves in previous seasons, and that has been one of the more disappointing things of this season.
So Dan goes on there about injuries and squad rotation. We were stretched this season. You know, we played 4 competitions. A lot of injuries, especially with Van Dijk, and obviously the situation with Jose Font. What have you made of our squad this season, Chris?
I think you have to give Claude some leeway with the injuries that you mentioned there. Obviously, Van Dijk losing Fonte and replacing him with Caceres, but him not really playing means we've obviously had two defenders, but I think the ironic thing is the centre-backs are our weakest position in terms of when you look at it. You think Yoshida and Stevens, they're not going to do too well, but you could argue they've probably been the most consistent players at the back. When you look at like Shane Long, I think he's probably scored about 5 goals in 44 appearances this season. He might have come off the bench for a lot of them, but I think, like it was said there, players set bars for themselves. You think Tadic, he's blown hot and cold this season, you know. I think fullbacks, defensive mids have been good. I think Forster's been a bit inconsistent, but I think up front and the players in behind are our main issue. I think there's not enough consistency. I mean, they've got the ability, but I don't think you need consistency at the top level to be able to push for the Europa League, which is obviously what the fans are expecting now.
And one thing I need to pick up there, actually, Dusan Tadic's been very vocal this season, saying that he's not getting enough game time, being pulled off every match or so. And then since the last few months of the season, Claude's given in to him. How do you think Claude's dealt with the situation, Ewan?
Poorly, to be honest with you. I like Claude, but I think he's back down to player power. We all know it's a modern feature of the game now, and he's barely been taken off since Tadic came out and made that statement to the Serbian press or whatever it was. So it's a difficult one to deal with because Tadic has had games where he's been our best player. Watford away, I remember, West Ham earlier in the season away, but consistently has failed to turn up, and I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves this summer, to be honest with you.
And one thing I need to add as well, you know, we wouldn't have seen this from Koeman last season or even Pochettino whilst he were here.
No, I think they had a high level of respect, both from the players, the fans, and everything. And I think the Tadic situation, when you see him play for Serbia, he's a different player. Clearly not playing for us at the moment, and that has to be addressed. If Claude stays, then I think you have to look at the end of Tadic. Obviously, if you get somebody else in, hey, come on, Dusan, you're a fantastic player. Knuckle down and do the business.
Okay.
Do the business you're doing for Serbia for us.
Well, we're going to go to another comment now from Jake from St Mary's Musings, who sent in quite a damning report for Claude Puel.
I'm torn on Claude. I think he's been handed a rough deal by Southampton. I feel like he's a bit of a scapegoat. Fans always want someone to blame, and I think he's the face that fits in that regard. New manager, the football's not been particularly pretty, and you know, for the first season since getting promotion in League One, we've regressed from the season previous. So this was the first summer where we sold players and we didn't actually improve on them. It's been a weird one. I don't think Puel is entirely to blame. I don't think he's the best manager we've ever had by any means. I'm not sure who's out there who could be better than him. I'm willing to give him a chance in another season at Southampton. If, let's say, by January things haven't improved, yeah, he can make a decision, but I think he needs to have a summer behind him where he makes all the transfers he wants. And to be honest, if Puel did get sacked, I wouldn't be upset, but I do think he's had a bit of a rough deal, and I do blame the club.
So Tony, Jake says that Claude's been handed a rough deal, and he says that we haven't replaced quality from what we lost in the summer.
I disagree with that. I feel that even with the outgoings last summer, that we should have been in a situation where we were challenging for top 6, especially with the progression coming through of the youngsters and the experience. McQueen, for example, Jake Hesketh, unfortunately, is injured. We've got some really talented youngsters coming through even before this season, and I think they should have been added to the pool of players.
There's a couple of comments coming in for some of our Twitter followers as well, and Jake mentioned at the very end that he wouldn't be upset if Claude were to leave, and there's a comment from Saint LYG. Would be happy for Claude to say if we could stop subs of James Ward-Prowse and others, plus the decisively of Dusan Tadic.
I think obviously that's probably come in relation to when we played Man United and all the fans booed when Ward-Prowse was taken off, when arguably he'd probably been one of the better players of our attackers. I know that game Gabbiadini only averaged, I think he only got 7 passes in the 60 minutes, and I think Ward-Prowse was doing well against United, considering he was out on the wing where maybe his skills aren't to the best of his ability because he's not the quickest player. So I think Ward-Prowse needs to stay on for longer, and we've already touched on the fact that kind of Puel's given in to Tadic and he's playing Tadic when maybe he's not doing too well. And I think Puel does. I'm not going to say he needs to man up, but I think, you know, all the fans criticised his rotation, and then we went 5 games without winning the other month, and I think he was making one change either week when we had players who were performing poorly week in, week out. So I think if Puel is to kind of man up and put his foot down with everything and say, this is what I want to do, I'm not giving into this, I'm not giving into this, I think I might be happy for him to stay. But if next season we saw a repeat, then I don't think I'd be able to kind of sympathise with him anymore.
And that's the problem that we've had. We were all complaining about the amount of changes that we've had this year, making 5 or 6 changes every single week before Christmas, around Easter time, and then he makes no changes over the last 3 months. Okay, we're going to go to a comment from Alex Bourne from Twitter then. The biggest disappointment we've had this season in the way that we've limped out of Europe. Puel got it totally wrong, and we should have got out of the group. Ewan?
Difficult one. The players, when they were playing in form, Charlie Austin took a while to get into the starting lineup at the start of the season. He wasn't playing players after they'd scored a goal. I think of Shane Long when he scored a header. I can't remember who it was against. It's a struggle for players to try and keep playing, keep the consistency. And if I was players like James Ward-Prowse, I felt for him the other day when he got taken off, and we're seeing players like Tadic be left on when he's having a much better game. It'd wind me up, and I agree. Claude's got to be more authoritative.
I'd agree as well, actually. That's what we've been missing this year. I was touched upon just a second ago. Koeman was a very authoritative figure. You know, Mane got dropped quite a few times last season for being late, for being vocal.
Yeah.
Claude's giving in to player power, as you said.
To a degree, yeah, and you're right. Koeman was a high taskmaster, as we're seeing now at Everton with what's his name,
Barkley.
The transfer, Barkley, and the transfer. But getting back to that Europa point, yeah, he wasn't brave enough in the home game against Beersheva. I mean, what had led up to it, a couple of dreadful. Well, the performance in Prague was dreadful, and the squad rotation was dreadful. Understand that you have to change a little bit, but it was just such a mass rotation of players that you've never got a settled game. And that last game against Beersheva, he just wasn't brave enough. Unfortunately, Charlie got his injury that game. Maybe he could have got us a goal, you know, and we nearly nicked one right at the death. But if we'd gone for it early doors in that game, I'm convinced we'd have beaten Beersheva. Get ahead, make them come out, and then you can take it to them.
And the biggest disappointment I think we had in Europe is the fact that we scored no away goals.
Yeah, all those miles and no away goals. But never mind, that's history now. But I think Prague was probably a low point. I think Prague was a really poor performance there. I mean, you go all season, everybody sings about Europe, and then when we get to Europe, we play half a team. What's going on? We're not the only ones that do that, but just think it's totally wrong.
Okay, time to go to a comment from Adam on Twitter. This season was always going to be a season of transition. Top 8 was the target, we're almost there. Cup final was a bonus. Puel has done enough to warrant a second season. However, if the club decided change is needed to be, Puel has done far better than most would give him credit for.
I think it's an interesting comment. I think, as you say, finishing top 8 behind Everton, who've been impressive, and then it is the regular top 6. You know, it's difficult to imagine us challenging that. So I think the cup final was a bonus. We performed well in the cup final, but again, we've said it's been a season of transition every year since maybe Pochettino left. So I think to then go and excuse Puel for it being a transition season, I think it's excuses. I think the only thing, it was also a comment on the fact that, you know, if the board think he should go, then he should go. I think one comment I'd say I have on that is that we need to have intent.
When like the team, it's fallen away then.
Yeah, I think we need to have intent. I think we've been linked with we've been linked with Fulham's manager, we've been linked with a couple of championship players. I think if we are going to sack Puel, we need to have a high quality replacement there who wouldn't be a sideward step. We need to make sure that if we're going to make that change, we need to step up so that we don't have another transition season.
Well, this is the thing. A lot of reports suggest that Silva from Hull could replace Claude, or Carvajal from Sheffield Wednesday. Both of those teams perhaps not live up to their challenges this season. Obviously, Marco Silva relegated with Hull, but perhaps an attractive football. And Carvajal is in the cup, is in the playoff final with Sheffield Wednesday. I'm not sure both of those would be a fit. I think we need somebody with European experience, like Koeman, to come in, and perhaps like Pochettino to push the team even further.
I think whoever comes in, if somebody comes in to replace Puel, if they're charismatic and they can take the club forward, they will, as other managers have done, they will use the team as a stepping stone to move on to bigger and better things. So you could argue, if we keep Puel on, he's not the type of person that would be attractive to other teams, I don't think.
Let's go to another comment, another video then, sent over from our friend Wiz.
So the future, there's an international break start of October, by which we would have played 7, maybe 8 games. I think Mr. Claude should be given a chance till then. I know it's not going to go down well. 7, 8 games, we know who's in, who's out, whether Virgil's here, who's got in, who's going to be the owners, things like that. You know, I think he deserves a chance till then. A couple of weeks off, maybe change it then if it doesn't go to plan. Hopefully it does. And one final thing, get rid of that song, that Southampton Way song. It just makes your ears bleed. It's, oh dear God.
So Wiz goes on there about give Claude another chance, perhaps give him until January to really go through the team, have a good summer of his own, bring in some of his other players. We've seen Buffal and Pied come in with Puel this summer, but also Wiz touches upon the Southampton song.
The song, well, yeah, it's not been great, is it? I'm more concerned about what's going on the pitch, and my big worry with Claude, if we do keep him, which we possibly could, is how does he rescue this situation? How does he get the players and the fans back on song? How does he do things a bit differently? I'm not sure that he can. I'm not sure that he can adapt. I think he's got certain views on the game. Fine, that's his philosophy, and it's worked in other clubs. But I don't think it's worked at Southampton, and I don't think it will work at Southampton. So very difficult to say another half a season, and that puts a lot of pressure on the guy. To say, well, actually, give him the whole season. If you're confident in him, why say half a season?
Yeah, you touched upon there that there's no consistency. Ewan touched upon about players, or was it Chris, or about players being dropped after they've impressed the previous game, and I think that's what his problem has been this season. That's been, from what I understand, that's been his philosophy.
Jordi Classy just recently, two very good performances, and then we see him nowhere. And same with Shane. When Shane hit a little bit of form and started to get goals, he's out again. It's not going to endear you to the players, that's for sure.
Okay, then let's wrap things up. Then let's go round and just quickly summarise Claude's in one sentence and give us a rating out of 10 in his first season. Ewan.
Okay, I'd like him here for next season. I'd like to give him a full season. Let him bring some more of his own players in, a bit more of a transfer budget from the board. Progress in cup finals and a little bit in Europe, but not enough in the league really. We'd like to see Europa football again. I'll give him 7 out of 10.
Chris?
Yeah, just echoing what Ewan said. I think he needs more of a board backing. Even what Kruger said the other day, he was very hazy with what he said about Puel and his future. I think if Puel's given the backing, if he's given the funds, I think he could do better next season. But I wouldn't blame the club if they got rid of him. I just know that they need to have somebody there who they can get in by the start of July. I'd probably give him 6.5 to a 7.
Right.
We never said about Pochettino. It was not talked about Ronald Koeman as having a review at the end of the season. So why are they reviewing Claude Puel? It's been very unfortunate this year with the spine of the team, with Charlie Austin and Virgil van Dijk. Had they been in the team, then I think we may have been viewing things a bit differently. Summing up, yes, he's brought the kids through, but few and far between. Martin Caceres, why has he not played? even in a back three. So many unanswered questions for me in that respect, and I would give him a work in progress 6 out of 10.
Clive?
I concur with the 6 out of 10 because I respect Claude's knowledge of the game, I respect his experience, but it just hasn't worked for Saints, and I don't see where it can work in the future.
Okay, what I'm going to say, I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. Obviously, the way I see it, he's had 4 challenges this season. First one is to bring in some youngsters. I think he's done that quite comfortably. Second one was to get out of that Europa group stage. Hasn't done that. Second one was a top 10 finish. Third one even. And the fourth one was a cup final. We can say we've got there, but we've fallen at the final hurdle. So 2 of those at least ticked. So perhaps only a half of the job done. Final one, big question that everyone's been put out there. Puel in or Puel out?
In. At the moment, I think I'm probably out.
In. Out.
Well, there you go, 50-50. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Leave us your reviews of Claude's season. Thanks for watching. Leave us your likes and subscribe for more.